don't know when I'm live. I don't know. Is there a sign that I'm live? All right. Hey, everyone. It's Dr. Susan Peirce Thompson, and we are live together on YouTube. Oh my gosh. Hi. Okay. So I don't remember if YouTube is like Facebook. Do you have to click to get sound? I know on Facebook you got to click on the image to get sound, and that's the first thing I always have to remind people of. Maybe you've already got sound, in which case, welcome. I'm Dr. Susan Peirce Thompson, and welcome to the very first thing in our live event that's going all week. It's all about how to get weight loss drug results without the drugs. And I'm sitting here in my home office in Rochester, New York, broadcasting to you live. And I'm here to be with you and to answer your questions and to share with you a little bit about what I've learned about the neuroscience and the biology of these new weight loss drugs and how it is actually possible to get those same results without the drugs. So, first of all, give me your hellos. I want to hear from you in the chat. I want to hear where you're from. I want to hear how your bright line eating journey is going. If you do bright line eating, if you're new to bright line eating, or this is your first YouTube live with me, definitely let me know that as well. And then get your questions into the chat as well. So this is Ask Susan Anything time. If you have any questions about what it really takes to take off your excess weight and keep it off long term, that's a good thing to ask me. That is my area of expertise, is in the psychology and the neuroscience of sustainable weight loss. I was living with clinical obesity in my 20s, and I've been slender now for over 20 years without any surgery, without any drugs, just changing my behavior. And it's, you could say diet and lifestyle, but oh my gosh, it's so much more than that, right? There's a universe that separates between, what we do in Bright Line Eating and what pretty much every other commercial weight loss program or behavioral health intervention or whatever does. And I'm happy to share with you the science about that. So if you've got questions about sustainable weight loss, if you've got questions about Bright Line Eating, if you've got questions about the boot camp, which is coming up, the Bright Line Eating Boot Camp 2.0, we'll be launching a huge cohort. Registration will open in just a few days on that as part of this event. And if you've got questions about these new weight loss drugs, I've been devouring books and articles and podcasts and learning everything I can. My expertise is in the brain. My PhD is in brain and cognitive sciences. And it turns out that these drugs don't just impact the gut, they impact the brain as well. So if you've got questions about these new weight loss drugs, I'm not a prescribing physician. I'm just going to give you scientific information and share my honest take as a person to person. These drugs are interesting and they're nuanced, and I do not have a strong stance pro or against. I really think it's nuanced. I really do, and I'm happy to dive into that with you. So if you have any questions about anything, if you've been with me before live, I'm a really open book. You really can ask me anything. Just let it fly. And my team is gathering all your questions and feeding them into a document here. So bear with me. If you ask a question, I won't see it in real time. It'll get put on a document and I'll be answering it in turn with the other questions that have come up. So first of all, let's just go ahead and get some hellos in, because we've got a lot of people here already. There were already almost 100 people waiting before we were supposed to go live. So if you've been waiting to join me, I'm so glad you're here. We've got Nancy G from Chicago, Illinois. We've got Debbie from Richmond, Virginia, Cheryl from New Hampshire, Krista from Wisconsin, and Christina from Michigan, who's on day 36 with her Bright Line Eating journey. Well done, Christina. Happy day 36. We've got Beth from Yuma, Arizona. Becky is here. We've got Florida. Bezig 1951 says, it's my first week in Bright Line Eating. Welcome. Judy B says, excited to hear the latest. You are live. Rachel Steiner says, hello from Portland, Oregon. Neil from Atlanta says, I hear you. I think at the beginning, I didn't know if I was live. I think I was live before I thought I was live. So you probably caught me saying like, oh, how do I know if I'm live? I couldn't tell. Laura's here from Mexico. Hey, Laura. And congratulations on electing your first female president. I definitely was following that from the United States, thinking, wow, go Mexico. Barb says, good morning from Colorado. Elizabeth from beautiful Kansas City, Missouri. Wendy from Utah. Patty from Brooklyn, New York. Dory from Long Island. Dory's released 50 pounds so far. Dory, tell us how you did that. You're not specific here. Was that with bright line eating? Was that with weight loss drugs? Was that with a combination? Well done, Dory. 50 pounds is a lot of weight. I released 60 pounds 20 years ago, 21 years ago. And, went from a size 16 to a size 4. And oh my God, it was such a miracle. Honestly, I felt like the fairy godmother just waved her magic wand and I was going to get to go to the ball. Like it was unbelievable. So that's a lot of weight to shed off your body. Susan Young is here from Baja California, Mexico. 3.5 years bright. Susan, wow, amazing. Well done, girlfriend. Carla Saunders is here from Fairbanks, Alaska, and she's struggling. She fell off in December after 2 months, and she's been struggling ever since. Tried intermittent fasting, and that did not help. Yeah, intermittent fasting is not going to help with your habits. The new boot camp might be a really good reset for you, Carla, to go back to the foundation and just start over fresh and pour your foundation strong. That Bootcamp 2.0 is a miracle worker when it comes to just a fresh, bright start. It might be just what the doctor ordered. Sarah is here from Panama City Beach, Florida, and on bright day 30 and loving Bootcamp. Love it. All right. So we've got some comments and some questions here. Keep the questions going. I am here to answer your questions. Jennifer says she discovered Bright Line Eating in April of 2023. Welcome, Jennifer. Amina Rose is here. Hi, Amina. She says, good morning, SPT. Program is going well. Cannot thank you enough. Finally back on track. Well done, Amina. Well done, my dear. Laura Krug says, hi, Susan. I'm calling from the sunny Jersey Shore. I've been in Bright Line Eating since 2019. It is the best way of living ever. I couldn't agree more, Laura. Couldn't agree more. Betsy says, Bright Line Eating has been excellent for me. Been living in my right-sized body in maintenance for over 6 months now. No problem. Well done, Betsy. You get a fist bump too. That's right size body, and I hesitate about right size, right? Because it sounds prescriptive. It sounds judgy. It sounds like there's a wrong size body then. But we don't mean it in that way, which is why we often call it a bright body, right? It's a body that's right sized for you. It's a body you feel comfortable in. It's a body that's telling you, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm comfortable. This is the size I was meant to be. It's gentle, it's compassionate, it's accepting. Oh, it's a bright body. So I'm so glad, Betsy, that you've settled into your bright body. So beautiful. Kathy Rogers says, I'm a bright lifer from Southern Indiana, doing great since I joined boot camp last October, and I'm approaching maintenance. I love the program. Kathy, love it. Woo! And you're a bright lifer. I'm assuming you're taking the maintenance courses, maintenance 1, maintenance 2. Kathy, give me some reassurance on that. I want to make sure that you're in the maintenance courses and bright lifers, because you don't want to be approaching maintenance and get caught flat-footed. Maintenance is a thing. It's what we excel at here in Bright Line Eating. And I want to make sure that you've got all the tools and support you need to transition to your bright body and stick that landing and then know how to live after that. So are you in maintenance 1 and maintenance 2? How's that going? Barbara says, I remember I asked Barbara, like, how are you losing that weight? And she said, I do Bright Line Eating, and I have since 2020. Bright Line Eating is the answer for me. Love it. Leah Allen says, I've been in maintenance for 3 years. I've been in maintenance for 3 years, over 1,750 days bright. This works. Leah Allen, well done, sweetie. Charlotte Sears is here. 7 years in Bright Line Eating, 120 pounds released. Much physical and emotional healing for this gal as a result. Charlotte, my dear, so good to see you here. Welcome. Love you so much. Bezig 1951 says, question about protein powder. Is it okay? As a senior, I need more protein. Bezig 1951, yes, it is okay, but be very, very, very careful, because I've been looking, I go to a very large exceptional grocery store called Wegmans, and I've been looking and I do not see a single protein powder on their shelves that I could eat or recommend to anyone. And the kicker is they all have sweeteners. You don't want to have any protein powder that has monk fruit or stevia or anything added to make it sweeter at all, even if it's a non-nutritive sweetener. So the protein that I recommend is Complement brand because of their exceptionally high quality practices and the fact that it's a blend of plant-based protein sources. It's not just pea protein. It's also almond and chia and pumpkin and a few other things. And it's only the whole food sources. And it's a really, really high quality product. It's a little bit more expensive than I think you can get just a pea protein for cheaper. But the challenge is that that will not have as good a balance of amino acids, right? You don't want to be getting, 8 times more of this amino acid and not much of this one, right? You really want a balanced profile, and that's what they've done with the complement protein. So Complement, I think my team can get you a link for, I don't get any money on that. It's not an affiliate link. It's just a bald link to go over there and buy it if you want to, but that's what I use. And the bright line eating equivalent of that, my dear, is you'll want to do it 1 ounce at a time. So 1 ounce of protein powder shaken up in water. And that will be equivalent to 1/2 of a protein serving. So you'll need to get half of a protein serving somewhere else in that meal. So great question. And you're right, as a senior, you do need more protein. I used to be very flippant about protein. I really believed what a lot of plant-based doctors were saying, which is we all get enough protein. Don't worry about protein. And no, I've been really looking into the latest research on this, and that's just not true for optimal health and to avoid sarcopenia, right? The wasting away of our muscle mass as we age. We really actually need more protein than we can often get. So I support you in doing, and what I found is that it just does not at all trigger the addictive centers of the brain, even though it's a powder. I get that. It does not at all trigger the addictive centers of the brain. So Candace says, I'm in the boot camp now, module 4. I'm struggling. It's a great program, but I cannot seem to stick more than 4 days in a row so far. Candace, this is worrisome. I'm really glad that you're bringing this up. What I suggest you do is get on one of those weekly coaching calls and really talk this through with one of our coaches and get their take, because that's a pattern that you want to obviously nip in the bud, and something's going on, and it's deep, and it could be any number of dozens of things, right? From without being able to ask you 10 or 15 questions, which the coaches will be able to do live talking with you. I couldn't even begin to guess what it is, but it's something's going on. The program does work and it will work for you, but it's not working now. So you got to sort this out, right? And so get on a coaching call with an honest and a willing, open heart. Just get on there, really willing to listen to guidance and to do something different, because you're going to have to do something quite different than what you're doing right now. And Cheryl H. Roseburg from Oregon, in Roseburg, Oregon, I know where that is, similarly said, my bright line eating journey is not going well. My cravings and behaviors are winning. Cheryl, same comment. So are you in Bright Lifers or in the boot camp? If you're not, then probably your next step is to get into this boot camp. We've got a boot camp cohort starting in a few days. So I would get into that. If you're a bright lifer, then get on a coaching call as soon as possible. And yeah, like I just said to Candace, be ready to look honestly at what's happening and be ready to do something different. As they say, if we keep doing what we've always done, we're going to keep getting what we've always gotten. So if things aren't going well, we're going to have to make some changes. Nancy G says, why is nighttime eating such an addictive behavior? Great question, Nancy. Okay, so first of all, the foods in our food supply are addictive, just like cocaine, right? So they're addictive. Ultra processed foods, sugar, flour, they're addictive. And nighttime eating is particularly wicked because that's when our anterior cingulate cortex, which is this part of the brain about 2 inches back from here, just behind the prefrontal cortex. And it's the seat of resisting temptation, of willpower control, if you will. And it gets depleted through modern life, through all the things we do all day, regulating our emotions and making decisions and task performance and all these things. It gets depleted, and by evening time, it's spent, and the addictive foods win. So it takes a very strong, coordinated behavioral approach combined with removing the addictive foods from the landscape altogether that can help get us through nighttime eating. But that's essentially why nighttime eating is so pernicious. Marion Miller says, what is bright line eating? Great question, Marion. Great question. So bright line eating is an approach to eating based on 4 bright lines. And it's an approach to eating that was designed for people who are more susceptible to the addictive properties of these foods that are in our food supply right now, right? So the 4 bright lines involve 2 bright lines, no sugar, no flour. And that right there takes out almost all ultra processed foods, all sweeteners. If you look at a list of the most addictive foods, it eliminates all of them. And you have to add the caveat that popcorn and potato chips are in the no flour bright line. They're molecularly equivalent to flour, white flour, right? They're just glucose unmitigated by any fiber. So they're in the bright line for flour. So with those 2 bright lines, sugar and flour, you take out all the addictive foods pretty much. And then that handles the substance addiction. Then with the second 2 bright lines, quantities and meals, you bound your eating occasions to handle the behavioral addiction, the process addiction to just eating itself. And with those boundaries being super strict, most plans will say it's okay if you cheat day or flex a little or whatever. In bright line eating, we don't do that. And the reason is that we take the addiction piece seriously and understand that with a bright line, you stay really clear about what you're doing and not doing, what works and what doesn't work. Just like if you want to be the designated driver at a party, you'll be a way better designated driver if you just don't pick up any alcohol that night. If you go into the party thinking, I'll be sure to drink moderately, there's a good chance that that line between moderation and immoderation won't be super clear to you as you're crossing it, right? Especially if you're just in the midst of, of drinking and now someone's like, oh, so-and-so's getting nauseous. They need to get home. They're not well. We need to leave now. And now you're like, well, I just had 2/3 of a drink of alcohol. I don't know if I can drive, right? So can you see that not drinking at all is the safe bet if you want to be a designated driver? In that same way, bright lines are actually the way to truly lose your weight and keep it off, because food is wily. It's seductive, it's confusing, it's plentiful, it's attractive. And when we intend to eat well, but we've got fuzzy boundaries about what that might look like, we keep messing up, don't we? Like, it's really hard to execute these plans that call for lots of snacks and cheat days and counting calories or points or carbs or whatever you're trying to do. The boundaries are too fuzzy on that. So bright line eating cleans all that up, gives you a very clear plan that is optimized for automaticity. So what I mean by that is we start to recruit the same areas of the brain, specifically the basal ganglia, that help us brush our teeth every morning and every night. And a lot of people find, because of the routineness of brushing their teeth every night, they suddenly become someone who brushes their teeth every night, whether they're traveling, whether they're in a good mood or a bad mood, whether it's late or it's early, whether they're sick or well. They don't need a sticky note on their mirror to remind them. They just are brushing their teeth because It's cued by a certain time of day and a certain sequence in the day, and suddenly they're brushing their teeth. And they don't have to want to or will it at all. Willpower is not a factor. It's an automatic sequence that gets rolled off from the basal ganglia without any cost to our cognitive systems, without any attentional load or motivational load at all. So in Bright Line Eating, we've hacked a way to get that freedom wired into our eating by eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner with a certain template of what those meals look like. And so what we find is that we wake up and we're suddenly eating breakfast, and it's exactly the right breakfast. And it didn't cost anything or require any choice or decision to make that happen. It just happens. Same with lunch, same with dinner. And so when the structure gets followed precisely, people find they have an almost miraculous feeling outcome. And when they start deviating, it starts breaking down, right? So Bright Line Eating and the Bright Line Eating Bootcamp help you set up that system. And the results that we're showing are that Bright Line Eating helps people lose weight equivalently to weight loss drugs. Oh, and I should have had my graph all called up here. Let me just give me a second here, folks. Let me find my graph. I know I've got this in my research folder, in my slide library. Where is it? Actually, maybe I should go into research project. Well, let's see, slide library. Where is the latest research slide? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't have this all queued up for you all. This is ridiculous. And now I can't even find it. Well, I know I can find a black and white of it. So let me just pull up the black and white. That's going to be under research projects in my book chapter. Okay, so let me just pull up this graph for y'all. I'm going to share my screen here. It's black and white, but you can rock and roll with that. So do you see this graph? Now, semaglutide drugs here on the left, that's Wegovy, that's Ozempic. And these are published results in peer-reviewed scientific journals, right? This is decades of research published across 12 different research studies. Zone, Nutrisystem, Atkins, SlimFast, Noom, they don't publish 2-year weight loss results because people have gained their weight back by then. Weight Watchers does have 2-year results published, but look, 3% weight loss. 3% is like someone who's 300 pounds losing 9 pounds. It's just not that much weight, right? Whereas when you look at these weight loss drugs, there's sustained and significant weight loss, even out to 2 years. And Bright Line Eating has published sustained and significant weight loss, almost identical. And look at in the first couple months, you lose actually twice as much weight with Bright Line Eating as you do with Ozempic or Wegovy. So these are peer-reviewed scientific journals. You can find the studies. I just published a massive review article on the link between ultra-processed food addiction and weight loss. It's got over 200 citations and references in there, including all of these studies. So you can access all of this science yourself. The article is called The Badly Behaving Brain, and my team can link that for you if you're interested. But yeah, so basically that's what Bright Line Eating is. It creates weight loss drug results without the drugs. And yeah, Marian, I hope that helps you understand a little bit about what Bright Line Eating is. Thank you for your question, my dear. I'm sure many other people had that question, so thank you for asking. Jamie Haynes says, Susan, do you have any information on how ADHD impacts food addiction and therefore a person's Bright Line Eating journey? Only a little, Jamie. It's not my area of expertise at all, but I did shoot a vlog on that, on ADHD, and maybe my team can link that for you so you can watch. It's a however long it is, 10, 15, 20-minute vlog, however long I talked. And so that's more than I can get into here, but my team can link that for you. Carla Saunders says, my bestie is going to use the meds. I can't talk her into Bright Line Eating first. Carla, I would say don't talk her into bright line eating first. I mean, it sounds like you've tried. So, each person is on their path, and bright line eating is not a program for people who need it. Lots of people, I'm sure when you're doing bright line eating, you look around and you see lots of people that it seems like need it, right? Um, it's a program for people who want it and are willing to do it, truly, because it's a big ask what we do around here. I have come to the point in my life where I love living this way so much. I've considered taking these drugs. Like I've literally have thought, Susan, you could just take this shot and not have to do any of the stuff that you do in bright line eating. And I think I don't want to do that because I actually love living in a world in which my community is surrounding me. I feel so loved and supported and connected. And my habits of self-care, including around my food, are necessary for my thriving. And I feel like I am thriving in every way, right? But it takes structure and effort to maintain this system, right? And I want that in my life. I so love the person I am when I live this way. But I cannot deny that it is a specific way of living and a specific, set of actions and attitudes that I need to maintain every day. And if someone doesn't want it, it won't work for them and it's not for them, right? So I think we have to have humility here and understand that bright line eating isn't for everybody. And we need to keep our eyes on our own plate in terms of, just rein in the judgment. Not saying that you're being judgmental, right? But just in general, it's easy to, and judgment in that sense of evaluating, assessing, right? Like just be very careful about evaluating and assessing someone else's situation and concluding that this would be better for them, right? Like you don't know that. We don't know that. Um, I have someone that I know who's going on these drugs and is probably on them now. I'm not sure the last time I talked with her, she was being prescribed Mounjaro by her doctor. Mounjaro is the main competitor to Ozempic. She has diabetes. She's 300, maybe 350 pounds. Her diabetes is raging. She's 55. She has a lot of heart disease in her family, and she's already got terrible diabetes. And my assessment is she probably won't live to be 60 if she doesn't do something dramatic. She's known about bright line eating for the whole 10 years that it's been in existence. And she knew me when I lost my weight 20 years ago and knew what I was doing then, the no sugar, no flour, weighing and measuring my food. She's not someone who successfully does much in her life. She struggles to keep a minimum wage job. She struggles to brush teeth and bathe. She's not a go-getter in any sense of the word. She never got her education. She's saddled with massive trauma from horrific sexual abuse as a child. She's not someone who has shown any signs of being interested in getting up the oomph to like put in a bunch of effort toward her health. And I think taking this weekly shot is absolutely what she should do, for sure. Like it'll probably add 10 years to her life. Um, Maybe 15 or 20, like literally. And so, I think it's really important to factor in that people are really different in all kinds of ways, right? So, Carla, I would really encourage you to be curious and compassionate and open-hearted and open-minded. I think these drugs are a really good solution for a lot of people. And I think that bright line eating is a really good solution for a lot of people. And I think a combination of these drugs and bright line eating is a good solution for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people will be on the drugs for a while, and whether because of the cost or the side effects, want to get off them and will then go looking for something like bright line eating to maintain their weight loss because they'll know that their weight's going to come back on if they don't do something. And that might be the motivation to have them do a behavioral intervention. So those are my thoughts, Carla. And I have so much compassion for you because of course you want your bestie to do bright line eating, right? Once you've discovered this way of life, it's really easy to feel like everyone should be doing it, right? Um, Laura Krug says, I'm here to learn what I can share with friends who are taking weight loss drugs. What are the pros and cons of taking weight loss drugs? Laura, great question. And I want to make sure you know about the video series that starts to be released today. So in the first video that's out, and everyone look and see where you can find the blurb. It's probably below me. But it's the blurb for this YouTube live, and it'll have a link in it to our event page. The link is ble.life/results. In other words, how to get weight loss drug results without the drugs, right? ble.life/results. So look for that link. And when you click on that link, what it'll take you to is our event page that's got all of the videos that are going to be released. And video one is released today, everyone. And Laura, video one is really a lot about the pros and cons of these weight loss drugs, a description of them, the cost, the how they work, the side effects, etc. And in a nutshell, Laura, the pros are really that they clamp down appetite pretty severely. Like they pretty much choke off the appetite. And they also kind of remove the reward value of food. They make eating kind of feel not feasible, not interesting, not attractive. So where you would have eaten something with relish, your favorite food, I don't mean like eating relish, I mean like eating something with excitement and, just wolfing it down, you'd find that you just eat a few bites and you completely feel like you can't eat. I experienced this in my first trimester of pregnancy. I experienced something similar. I had food aversion. I just couldn't eat. I felt nauseous and I couldn't eat. These drugs make you feel nauseous often. They start you on a low dose and slowly increase you over a 4-month period of time. And that gradual ramp up can mitigate some of the nausea. But it seems like the drugs also take away other addictive impulses, like to shop or smoke or gamble or, drink alcohol. They are working in the reward centers of the brain to modulate reward and tamp it down. And so for someone who's really stuck with bright line eating, they could be a really helpful thing to even maybe for a while to take away the cravings and allow someone to get their habits really under their belt. The cons are they make you feel not great often, like nauseous, like kind of stuffed up in your esophagus. They work by thickening the bowel lining and slowing gastric emptying, slowing down your digestive system. So if you used to poop regularly, like every day, you'll probably start pooping every other day, every third day. Probably not great to have those toxins inside your body longer, right? So that's a downside. It's rare, super rare, but in extreme cases, it causes complete bowel obstruction, and stomach paralysis. So, it's super rare, but bowel obstructions are up. Oh gosh, I think oh no. So pancreatitis and bowel obstructions are up 450% and 900%. I forget which one's which. That's the other thing it can cause is pancreatitis, which is extremely painful. It can also cause thyroid cancer. I thought it didn't cause thyroid cancer in humans, but I just found a French study looking over the entire French population database, so millions of people, and it looks like it does increase risk of thyroid cancer by 50 to 75% in humans. So if you have a risk of thyroid cancer in your family, the FDA in the United States recommends that you not take these drugs. So those are some of the side effects. The side effects are rare, except for the nausea, like the vomiting, nausea, constipation, like that's common. That's common that these drugs cause that. One of the drug companies is currently trialing a combination of an anti-nausea medication mixed in there to try to mitigate that a little bit because a lot of people really just don't feel good on them. But some people feel pretty fine. And the removal of appetite, like I said, is pretty stunning. Like it's like you don't want to eat. And the reward thing in the brain as well. You just don't care about food anymore. So for someone who's been plagued by wanting to binge or eat addictively, it can be like a miracle. Like it just takes that away. Um, so, and then of course there's the cost. Right now they're super expensive and insurance companies are going through all kinds of jumping jacks trying not to cover them as much as possible because they're so expensive. Like if in the United States, if you just pay out of pocket, we're talking like over $1,000 a month, like really expensive. Most insurance companies have limits on how much they'll pay for. Um, and and you may not be able to get coverage at all. So you'll have to talk to your specific insurance company. Laura, let me know if you have any other specific questions, but the video series will really be helpful for you. So I really encourage you to tune into that. Beth Janda says, I've restarted Bright Line eating, but my husband is not on board. I'm watching this because he's on a weight loss injectable, struggles with GI issues, and feels he cannot sustain any weight loss. So, it's so hard, Beth, when our loved ones aren't on board. And the challenge is that we're the last person often who can help them. I just really encourage you to keep your eyes on your own plate and live by example and try your absolute best to be just curious and open-hearted and compassionate. Um, and yeah, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you. But if he's on a weight loss injectable, maybe that'll work for him and that would be good, right? So Wendy Marie says, I've been in bright line eating since 2017 and still have not lost the weight due to food chatter. I hear the weight loss drugs stop this. Nothing, and I mean nothing, has helped. What do you think? Thinking face. Wendy Marie, you sound like someone who might be a good candidate for the combination of doing these drugs and bright line eating at the same time. That's my honest take. It sounds like it might be really helpful for you. So if you can afford it, if your doctor will prescribe it, I would say that combination might be a really good next step, right? And I'm just a big fan of being a scientist, right? Try it and see how it goes. Try it and see if you can stay so bright that within a year or so you can phase off the drugs and stay bright, give it a try. Give it a try. Christina Catan says, question, are you going to be offering scholarships for boot camp again? We did, Christina. We offered 20 full scholarships. The winners already were notified. So in the vlog and in an email that went out to our whole list, maybe 3 weeks ago or something like that, I announced that scholarship applications were open. We will always do that before a boot camp launch. Our next slated launch is for the end of September. So you've missed the window for this boot camp. But keep your eye out. I always say there's different ways to have skin in the game, right? One way is with money. That's a big way that you can have skin in the game, right? We pay for all kinds of stuff in our lives, and ponying up money is a really good way to have skin in the game. And we have data that shows that the more that people pay for boot camp, the more weight they lose and the better they do. Like having more skin in the game is helpful. You watch yourself pay that money and it proves to you, like you watch yourself and it shows you this matters to me. I'm going to put my all into this, right? And we understand not everybody has the financial resources to do that. So there's other ways to have skin in the game. And one of them is your attention, your time, and your effort. And so we've been very clear about when scholarships come out. They come out before each boot camp. And there's a narrow window when you have to apply, and we review all the applications and we assign the winners and we notify them, and they have to register for boot camp before registration opens to the rest of the population. So that has all happened already. Actually, it closed down yesterday. All that process finished yesterday for this round of boot camp. So you will want to pay particular attention in late August and early September, mid-September. That's when the scholarship announcement will go out for the next boot camp cohort. The next boot camp launch is going to be at the tail end of September and early October. So that's when you'll want to have your eyes and ears peeled, Christina. Cheryl Nangeroni says, pasta with homemade sauce. What do you think? I cannot live without pasta. Cheryl, just all the capitalizations and exclamation points you put in that question make it clear to me that there might be some addictive attachment happening there. The thing about pasta is that it's made with flour, and flour's bright line number 2, right? No flour. I'm with you. Pasta is one of my favorite foods of all time too. And I live without it one day at a time. I do. That said, there is a brand of pasta in the United States. It's called Explore Asian, and they've got a black bean pasta. It's just made out of beans, and it's quite good, actually. I don't find it addictive. I actually almost never think about it. And once you've gone through boot camp and detoxed your brain, you could then try introducing that a couple months later and see how it goes once you have peace. Once you have peace, you could try introducing that and see how it goes. So I wouldn't think of it as a forever. I would think of it as, I'm going to get into boot camp. I'm going to just trial this, just on a trial basis, see what it's like to get free. And then I'll have options. And then you can try reintroducing things and see how it goes. Marion Miller says, 20 years ago, I lost 100 pounds with Overeaters Anonymous. Is Brightline expensive? I'm on a fixed income. Well, it depends. You might feel like it's expensive if you're on a fixed income. Expensive is relative. It's a lot cheaper than the weight loss drugs right now. I think the weight loss drugs will come down in price in time, but right now it's 90. I mean, if you think about doing these drugs long term, like over 5 years, doing bright line eating is 95, 97% cheaper than doing weight loss drugs for 5 years. Right now, the cost of bright line eating is going to go up in the fall, by the way. So for everyone here who's considering boot camp right now, it will be significantly less expensive now than in the fall. Right now, you're going to get a $500 discount in this launch to do it. It'll be $497 in this launch. And then when you get to Bright Lifers, it'll be $399 a year. And if you get to Bright Lifers now, this cycle, you'll lock in that low price. All those prices are going up in the fall. So you might find that that's expensive. And Marion, there are more effective 12-step programs than OA. If you wanted to try a free approach, I would recommend going to a different 12-step program. There's several of them. The one I would recommend the most is FA, but there's also Gray Sheeters Anonymous and CEA How. And those 12-step programs are way closer to what we do in Brightline Eating in terms of no sugar, no flour, weighed and measured meals, a lot more structure. So if finances are your number one concern, you might want to go back to a 12-step program and try one that's more rigorous. Brenda Wold says, hello from Wisconsin. I was doing so good for 2.5 years, and now I need to restart. I need to resume. I'm struggling to get back on track. Brenda, this boot camp that's coming up might be your opportunity to do that. And I really encourage you to think through where you went off track, globally speaking, and really be honest with yourself about that. Like because like I've struggled a lot in my food recovery journey, and now I'm so peaceful and blessed and grateful for the place I am now. And a lot of how I think I ended up here was really culling the lessons, like squeezing the lessons out of all of the falling flat on my face, back face down in a bowl of cookie dough, that I experienced. Um, and so what happened, really? How did you get off track? Were you not really heeding the guidance around support? Did you start to think, oh, I can flex my program here or there? Did you introduce some black bean pasta? Like, what happened that led you off track, right? Really inventory it so that you don't lose the gift of that lesson. Um, Wendy Murray says, you made me cry. This is the one that I suggested she might want to try weight loss drugs in conjunction with bright line eating to tamp down that food chatter. She says, I kind of feel bad for thinking about using these drugs because I see how much bright line eating changes lives. My poor brain or my rebel part just doesn't want it. I'm planning on parts work too. Oh, sweetheart. You know, you're such a dear soul. You're such a dear soul. Only you have your answers deep inside, my dear. Truly, truly, truly. And so just sit deep inside. What are you called to do? Are you called to try the experiment of parts work and a deeper surrender? Are you called to try the experiment of weight loss drugs in conjunction with bright line eating? There's no shame here. There's no right or wrong. I think that often it's so easy to think that the weight loss drugs are a failure or it's like a cheat, right? It's sort of like getting for free something you should have to work for. But the reality is that those of us with serious food addiction have a disease, and taking a pharmaceutical that addresses the symptoms of a disease is not a bad thing. Like, I have a disease called Hashimoto's hypothyroiditis, and I take a thyroid hormone pill every morning that stabilizes that out. This is analogous, right? If you have developed an addiction to sugar and flour and processed foods, you've developed a disease, and taking an injection of a hormone that stabilizes that out, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. It's it's an option that has downsides and upsides. And I just encourage us all to take the shame out and the shoulds and shouldn'ts out of it, right? And Wendy, if what's happening is you're being called to do a deeper level of work because you've never really applied the program because a rebel part hasn't been on board, then amen and hallelujah. And maybe that's your next step, is to do the deep inner work and surrender, for goodness sakes, already to doing the whole program. I don't know what's true for you, sweetheart. Just be curious and compassionate and compassionate. There's no right or wrong here. Kathy Rogers is responding about this notion of skin in the game. She says, paying for boot camp kept me on the straight and narrow because I paid too much to fool around with the program and waste my investment. Yeah, exactly. Like, I wish every human being, I wish that there was some sort of like psycho-spiritual technology that each human being had an amount of money that was a real stretch, but doable within their financial circumstance. A real stretch, but doable. And when they clicked the register button, that's the amount of money that would go to Bright Line Eating to pay for their service, right? Like, I think that would be so cool. But unfortunately, it's not like that. So we just have to name a price, and that's how it goes. Sue Smith says, 7 years ago, I struggled to pay the registration fee for boot camp and the Bright Line Eating community. I've worked out, I previously paid out 30 pounds at least 3 times a week on binges. I'm now 128 pounds down, so it was worth it. Well, so Sue Smith, you're amazing. I love you so much. I'm so glad you're here. And yeah, the money we spend on excess food and also on food, fresh produce in the fridge that we end up throwing away, right? Because we're eating, sugar and flour instead. It's a lot of money that we waste, isn't it? Um, Beth Monroe says, being a subscribed member is huge for my program. Listening to accountability calls, participating in the Gideon games, and constantly having a course to go through, it makes a big difference. FAS, food action support, all three are vital for a strong Bright Line Eating program. Thank you, Beth Monroe. It's so true, isn't it? It's so true. It works when we work it. And Jenny Hazelden is here from Massachusetts. She says, I've been sugar and flour free and working the program since the second ever boot camp back in February of 2015. I am here because I am committed to staying close to the mothership. Good to see you, Jenny. Good to see you, my dear. Julia Slesser says, big question. My big question is around building habits when I'm a shift worker. I work 12-hour day shifts, then 12-hour night shifts, then have 4 days off. Oh, yikes, Julia, that is hard. That is hard. You know what, Julia? I will be honest. I am not the world's expert in that. Um, I feel like I would need to live that for a bit to get a sense of like, what's the best way to navigate that? Um, I would suggest, have you gotten on a coaching call, Julia, and really talked it through with a coach? Because I know this is a question that comes up fairly frequently, because it's a beast, shift work. And I know that there's other people in our community who've experienced this and would have thoughts for you. So my question is, have you gone that route? Have you tapped into our coaches and our Bright Lifers community? If you're not a Bright Lifer, you probably need to be a Bright Lifer. Um, Barbara says, should I use weight loss drugs to support me as I resume? I lost over 100 pounds and gained about 40. I'm resuming with a guide now. Barbara, I have a question for you. You're resuming with a guide. How's it going? Are you bright? Are you managing one day at a time? If you are, then I would say keep going as you are. You don't need weight loss drugs. Um, Only you know, right? Only you know. It's maybe you should use weight loss drugs to support you as you resume. Not necessarily, though. Do you feel like you learned what you needed to learn from, what happened as you slid off track? And do you feel like you're back on track now with a guide? My guess is you never had a guide before, so that means you're doing something different. So potentially. Um, RSF 6262 says, how is Brightline Eating different than 12-step programs like Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous? Great question, RSF. So I already talked about one of the differences to someone else, right? Cost, like those programs are free. Brightline Eating has a financial investment, which can be helpful for some people and is a deal breaker for other people, right? But there are a lot of other differences. In short, bright line eating, I would say the biggest differences are that bright line eating covers science. We talk about science here, both neuroscience and psychology. For some people, that's essential. They just need to know why something works. Programs like FA have a lot of arbitrariness and non-scientificness built into them because they're oral traditions. They're just, I do what my sponsor told me to do, and that's all I know. And so for some people, that approach doesn't work. For some people, it's fine though, because you just need to surrender anyway, and they just take the what's given down to them, and that works fine. Another key difference is that 12-step programs are 12-step programs. And I say that not meaning to be, funny or insulting or anything, but they're 12-step programs, which means that to do the inner work, you work the 12 steps, which means there's a lot of talk about God, which means the solution is seen as being turn your will and your life over to the care of God, and God will solve your problem. And in bright line eating, we're not a 12-step program. So there's no talk about God. There's no prejudice against God. As a matter of fact, I do sometimes talk about spiritual things like prayer and meditation in scientific terms because research shows that they're very helpful, like for replenishing willpower. But that's as far as we go here. The rest of your spiritual or religious path is left up to you, right? So the way we do the inner work is with parts work. So we're talking about a psychological approach that has a lot of research behind it called internal family systems. And it's a very different approach to doing the inner work. So that's another big difference. Another big difference I would say has to do with the feature of autonomy. So there's something called self-determination theory that says that in order to be thriving and happy and flourishing, people need three things ultimately: competence, relatedness, and autonomy. Competence, like the feeling of being good at things. You get that in both programs. Relatedness, connectedness, community. You get that in both programs strongly. But the issue of autonomy is very different. In a 12-step program like FA, you really need to be willing to surrender a lot of your autonomy and do what your sponsor tells you to do, or you won't keep a sponsor and you won't be able to be successful in the program. In Bright Line Eating, you get to keep your autonomy. And so for some people, now there is a path that's laid out, and some people's rebel parts have issues with that path and they buck against it. But really, we still leave you to do it or not do it, as you're going to do it or not do it. And your membership, your belonging are not on the line as you do or as you figure out what you're willing to do and not do. In FA, your ability to keep a sponsor and therefore really to work the program is on the line if you don't accept hook, line, and sinker every last bit and nuance in every way of what's being handed out. And what that means is that your experience in a program like that really hinges on how well you mesh with your sponsor. Whereas in Bright Line Eating, that's not an issue. So those are some of the big differences, I would say. I would also say that in a program like FA, you're not generally given enough rope to hang yourself. Meaning, like, it's a very narrow path, and a good sponsor will make you walk it to work with them. In Bright Line Eating, again, because you have your autonomy, the path that's laid out really works. And we talk a lot about JFTFP, just follow the fabulous plan, just follow the friggin' plan, because it works. But you're given enough rope to hang yourself. And so for a lot of people, that doesn't work because their addiction is just so strong that they never find peace and relief. Some of those folks maybe should try FA and see what happens for them. But I think there's a lot of people in FA that aren't successful that maybe need to hear more about the science and have a little bit more autonomy granted to them, and they could be really successful in Bright Line Eating. So they are very different programs. They are very different programs. And I think to really experience the fullness of the difference, you'd have to try them both. But I've done the best I can to sort of explain the differences. But thanks for asking. Okay. Questions about protein and age. April asks, will you be adjusting the protein levels on the Bright Line Eating plan at some point to accommodate age? I don't know, April. I can say that we don't have plans at this moment to do that. Right now we have a standard protein plan and a protein enhanced plan. And one thing we could do that would be pretty simple is just to add a little rider of like, hey, once you're over X age, consider switching to the protein enhanced plan. Ruth Palmer wants to know, at what age would you add protein to the weight loss plan and how much would be added? Ruth, you would probably want to go to the protein enhanced version of the plan. And I would Google that. I'm not sure. I mean, shoot, we can Google that right now. I'm a pretty fast typist. How old do you need more protein? I'm going to guess 60, but a person over the age of 50 may want to consume more. That makes sense, actually. So the quick Google search just said over the age of 50. And the reason that makes sense is that's when menopause and menopause happens. That's when estrogen tanks by 90%. And that is what leads to muscle and bone loss often. So yeah, probably around age 50, you might consider the protein enhanced plan. Um, Beth Hogberg says, are you able to address the negatives of taking weight loss drugs? I'm seeing more and more negatives pop up in the news. So, Beth, I think the negatives in a nutshell are the cost. It's enormously expensive, right? Enormously expensive right now. It won't be forever, in 10 years, it won't be, but now it is. The fact that unless you're going to stay on them, it's a quick fix. It's a short-term solution, and you lose the benefits when you go off them. So really, unless you're prepared to stay off them, or unless you're going to focus every last bit of your effort to use them as a tool to get your bright lines really, really, really solid so that you can wean off them and just use bright line eating from then on, right? Unless you're going to do that, it's just another yo-yo because you're going to go down and then back up when you go off them. So that's a big issue. There is a wild card negative that I don't know if it's a negative. It could be a positive. It's just a wild card, which is that we see that GLP-1 is really active in the brain. There are receptors for GLP-1 and there is GLP-1, the hormone, all throughout the brain, in the reward centers, in the appetite centers, and all throughout the rest of the brain too. And we don't know what happens to the brain to have GLP-1 so high on a steady basis. The way GLP-1 works in the gut is that it spikes up when you've just had a meal to tell you you're full now, and then it kind of goes away. It like the levels go down really fast. And that's in the gut. In the brain, GLP-1 levels aren't meant to be high all the time. And we are not sure what the implications are in the brain of just having more GLP-1 all the time. I'll give you an analogy. Prozac, SSRIs, very comparable. They work by increasing serotonin in the brain by blocking the reuptake of serotonin so that more will linger for longer. So basically, serotonin gets released, it doesn't get sucked back up, and now you've got more serotonin lingering at the synapse, able to act and bind to receptors more. So you're basically net increasing serotonin in the brain. Well, yeah, serotonin works in the mood centers of the brain, but it's also all over the brain. And so SSRIs, sure enough, affect appetite. They affect sleep. They affect sex. I was on them for a long time and I had almost no sex drive for all of those years. Had a huge impact on my marriage. So, mood, sex, sleep, appetite, all of these things are impacted by going on an SSRI. We don't really know yet what the comparable array of things that might be impacted by GLP-1s is. So it's just a wild card, and people are different, right? Like SSRIs kill a lot of people's sex drive, but not everybody's. A lot of people also, when they're on an SSRI, feel like this, like flat mood, right? Some people are starting to report that with GLP-1s, just less, like they just feel, that kind of, some would call it anhedonia, could be caused by how it's leveling out levels in the reward centers of the brain. You just don't feel as motivated or driven as you used to. Well, that means you're not going to gamble as much or eat as much, but maybe that's not a good thing if you don't feel as motivated in life as much, right? So these are just question marks. We don't have good answers for these questions yet. I already mentioned some of the clear potential side effects. These will impact very, very, very few people on a percentage basis, but the downsides are huge for the people that will get impacted. Complete bowel obstruction, pancreatitis, thyroid tumors, and thyroid cancers. That happens for some people being on these drugs. It's not a lot of people. Those are some of the negatives. I have seen things about suicidal ideation. I think the studies have shown that that's not a big issue. I'm a little bit confused about all the talk about muscle loss because the data that I've actually seen show that these drugs don't create more muscle loss with your weight loss than losing weight naturally anyway. But people are talking a lot about the muscle loss. If you're on these drugs, you probably want to make sure you do some resistance training. Okay. Yvonne Jurgen says, I'm not on Facebook, which can be for me another location of addiction. How much of the boot camp is built around Facebook community? Yvonne, you'll be so happy to know that we have an entirely separate online support community that's not built in Facebook. It's called the Bright Line Eating Community Circle. And you can access it through our hub. There is a Facebook group, but you don't have to join it. And it's no different than the community circle. We have a community circle. There's thousands of people in it, and you can access it all without being in Facebook. So good news. AJ says, can you go more into the addictiveness of popcorn and potato chips? I struggle with these foods, especially popcorn, reasoning that they don't have flour or sugar, but derail my progress. AJ, I'm just going to be flat out with you. Those are flour. Like, stop it. There is no rationalization there. They are very clearly not on the Bright Line Eating plan. There is no loophole there. I'm closing that loophole for you very clearly. Popcorn and potato chips are not bright foods. They fall into the bright line for flour because they are molecularly equivalent to flour. They are glucose molecules unmitigated by any fiber. They are flour. They are not on the bright line eating plan. Boom. And there's several layers to their addictiveness. I think it has to do with the flood of glucose that hits the bloodstream too fast. It has to do with the fats that are in them, and the salt, and that blissful combination of it, and the crunch as well. Textures can be addictive as well. Potato chips and popcorn are in the top 8 most addictive foods known to man, and potato chips are in the top 3. Like, you're totally duping yourself, sweetheart. Like, these are not bright foods. These are not bright foods. It's like potato chips are in the top 3 most addictive foods of all time. Popcorn is in the top 8. I think it's like number 7 or number 8 on the list of all-time most addictive foods. It's not bright. Cut it out. Sherry Bennett says, can a person be food drunk? Yeah, they really can. I've been food drunk. You binge enough on sugar and flour and quantities, and it releases enough dopamine that it can truly impair you. Anka Koki says, hi, Susan. Here's Anka. I'm in the boot camp. I didn't drink caffeine for 3 weeks. Also no decaf, only still water, hot and cold. Do you think it is too strict? No, I don't think that's too strict. I think that's fabulous. I mean, what you're doing, Anka, by giving your brain some relief from the caffeine, and no decaf. That's how I do it too. Right now, I'm not on any decaf for about 2 years now. No decaf, no caffeine, only I drink herbal tea. You might want to allow that. Or, sometimes a sparkling water or something like that with lemon or lime. But one of the benefits of letting go of that caffeine is you're letting your brain heal all the more. It's great. Debbie Johnson says, this is my reason why I joined Bright Line Eating. I started January 16th of this year. I'm happy to say it will be 2 weeks since I went off of Mounjaro. This is one of the weight loss drugs, and half of my metformin in February. Bright Line Eating is my lifeline forever. So glad to hear it, Debbie. Well done, sweetheart. Well done. Good for you. You sound really convicted and proud and in a good way, right? Like good pride. Good for you. Um, Roseanne M says, how will Gizmia help with losing weight? Will it curb your appetite and speed up metabolism? So this is a medication, phentermine and topiramate extended release capsules. I don't know anything about that drug. I'm so sorry, Roseanne. I don't know. I don't know. So you'll have to just Google it and learn as much as you can. Patty says, when will you talk about Ozempic? I've been talking about it lots and lots and lots. Cheryl says, I cannot currently afford the boot camp. You recommended to dig into the book, Bright Line Eating, and Resume. I need to buy the Resume book. Okay, sounds like a good plan, Cheryl. Sounds like a good plan. We were talking earlier about 12-step programs too. You might want to go to a 12-step program like FA. That's another option. SC Sharp says, I started my Bright Line Eating journey from seeing videos on YouTube in 2017. I lost a significant amount of weight in 6 weeks, and I followed everything strictly for at least 8 weeks. I got loose with the lines around Thanksgiving in 2017. I pulled out of that spiral by the winter of 2018, but I picked up a few pounds, of course. And then boom, nothing could compel me to stop. I'm still on the sidelines. I'm attempting to get back to the basics. Although I've tried several times, I'm hopeful I will do it this time. I'm here today to see if there is compelling info. You know, SC Sharp, I just want to impress upon you, like if nothing changes, nothing changes. And it's not that you need to try harder, it's that you need to do something different, I would say. Like really consider actually getting into the boot camp and really following it. Because what you'll find when you do that is that actually working the full Bright Line Eating program is very different from what you've been doing in the past. It's very different. And so I really encourage you not to try to do it yourself with Bright Line Eating. Tracy W says, will Bright Line Eating help me stop the mindless eating? Absolutely. Absolutely. Jen High says, would taking Contrave help to overcome breaking bright lines in the first weeks? Maybe. Maybe. So this is naltrexone. And that will block some of the the addictive receptors in the brain. So it might. Yeah, I don't think it would do it as well as like Ozempic or Wegovy or something, but it might. Jaybird D says, in the bar chart that you just presented, there is a drop off in the sustained weight loss between year 1 and year 2. Do you have any theories about why? Has the program changed in view of that? So, so I do have theories about why. Basically, that bar chart, so in the semaglutide bar chart where they're looking at the weight loss drugs, they're only looking at data for people who are still on the drugs. In the Bright Line Eating data, in contrast, that's averaging everybody who started the Bright Line Eating bootcamp 2 years prior. And what happens between year one and year 2 is that a few more people stop doing Bright Line Eating. So they stop getting the results. So no, we haven't changed the program. The reality is if we took out the people who weren't working the program anymore, the bar graph would be way higher. Does that make sense? So it's not that the program stops working, it's that a few more people drop out and stop doing it. Margie Brew says, how does liquid stevia drops affect the brain? Does a 3-day juice cleanse affect the BLE program in the brain? Margie Brew, they actually impact the brain pretty similarly. Those stevia liquid drops and the juice cleanse are both going to be very, very bad for your brain's healing. And the reason is that the stevia drops are going to hit your tongue, and those sweet taste bud receptors have direct connections up to the addictive centers in the brain. And that's going to be a bad thing. So what's going to happen is it's going to trigger the addiction. It's going to keep your brain from healing. You get a dopamine response from that. And there's good research showing that people who take stevia in the morning, they're eating more by the evening. It will impact your eating. And the same with the 3-day juice cleanse. Once you pulverize that fruit into juice, you've now turned what was a healthy food, mitigated by the fiber, into just sugar water. Like that is going to hit your brain very, very fast, release a big dopamine spike, a big glucose spike, and a big insulin spike after that. And all of that is going to keep your brain and your blood, your metabolism from healing. So you don't want to do either of those things. Susie Runge says, has anyone done BLE on the down low? Meaning I don't really need the skepticism of my family and friends. I just want to do this myself. Susie, I think a lot of people do that actually. I don't think that's that uncommon. And I would say try it on the down low for a while, and eventually you might change your mind and come out of the closet as someone who's doing bright line eating. But I think a lot of us who've tried a lot of things in the past, we're pretty burned from telling people with excitement about what we're doing with our food, right? That feels like old, tired behavior. And I am not surprised that a part of you just wants to do this in private for a while. I think that's fine. Bezig 1951 says, regarding weighing food, the ounces on bagged produce, it's a lot less than when I weigh it. Go with your digital food scale. Go with your digital food scale. And you need to weigh things after you cook it too, which is going to affect the ounces hugely as well. Lauer says, all I need to do is lose belly fat. Will this help? I am vegan and healthy otherwise. Am I too late for the next boot camp? You're not too late. Registration for the next boot camp is going to open in a few days. Look at the link, everyone. There's a link in the blurb for this YouTube live. That link goes to the event page, which has got every last thing about this big event that we're having, and the registration link for the bootcamp will appear when registration is open. Registration will open on the day that video 5 gets released, which I believe is 5 days from now. So you're not too late for the bootcamp. Bright line eating really will help you lose belly fat, and so welcome. And we have a lot of vegans in bright line eating. You're not alone. Lots of people do plant-based eating. Yvonne says, as an alternative to injectables, I'm taking the natural supplement berberine. It quiets the food chatter. I've never heard of that. Berberine. I'm going to copy that and Google it after we're done here. Berberine. Interesting. Thanks for sharing, Yvonne. I'm glad it's working for you. Okay. APR Stowe says, it's my understanding that Mounjaro and Ozempic require the patient to change their food choices as well for the medication to be effective in a diabetes diagnosis. Why don't people talk about that? There is personal responsibility with taking Mounjaro, Zepbound, or Ozempic and Wegovy. They're not the end-all answers. So many medications have side effects, but no one shames the people who take them. It's interesting. I have not heard that these drugs require people to change their food choices in order to be effective. I've not heard that at all. As a matter of fact, what I've mostly heard is that most people are just eating the same crappy food, just less of it, because they're less hungry. I do believe that the pharmaceutical companies talk about them as being in conjunction with healthy diet and exercise, but I have not heard, and I've been reading pretty deeply on this. I would have come across it by now if that were true, that you had to change your food choices for these drugs to work. I do not think that that's true, actually. Carol Myers says, I was on Ozempic and at first it was miraculous. Then after upping the dose several times, I didn't get back to the initial miracle. I felt so yucky and even started gaining weight, and I got no guidance. Oh, Carol, I'm so sorry to hear that. I have heard that from some people that they develop some tolerance to it and it doesn't keep working the way it used to. And interestingly, a 4-year follow-up study just came out on Wegovy. And 4 years in, people are only maintaining a 10% weight loss, not that 15% weight loss. So there is some weight regain that's happening after a few years. Sherry Bennett wants to know, for Bright Line Eating, once you pay the enrollment fee, do you have to pay for programs after the initial cost? So the way it works, Sherry, is you pay for boot camp up front. Then about 2.5, 3 months later, boot camp will end. And at that point, you'll have a choice. Almost everyone at that point does go into Bright Lifers, which is the annual membership. And you'll pay an annual registration fee at that point, and then that will be annual at that point. And if you get in with this cohort now, you will be in the last group to get the discounted price on Bright Lifers because the prices are going up in the fall. So you'll get locked in at $3.99 a year for your annual membership, and that will be going up by $100 in the fall. Carla Saunders says, I thought I remember someone saying that there's some people that just have the addiction, that there's no reason, so parts work would not work for everyone. Is that your understanding and belief? I don't think I quite understand what you're asking. Are you saying that some people just have a biological addiction, so parts work won't help? No, I don't think that that's accurate, because what happens is that the brain and the mind are connected, right? The brain is creating the mind. So the biological addiction creates the parts. And you can work with the parts psychologically, and that does help, actually. The mind and the brain are connected bidirectionally. So parts work will help with addictions. Also, Carla wants to know, have you heard of pendulum GLP-1 capsules for curbing cravings naturally? I started it a week ago. I have not. W says, I joined BLE but stayed in the ditch. I need help as I've gained more weight. Can you review the cost again? Okay, here's the cost. If you go to the Brightline Eating website right now, you can sign up for boot camp, but it's $9.97. $9.97. In this launch that we're doing right now with a new cohort of people, registration will open in about 5 days, and you'll get 50% off. You'll get it for $4.97. And then when the boot camp ends a few months later and your Bright Lifers membership dues come up, it'll be $3.99 a year at that point for Bright Lifers, and you'll get that locked in. All those prices are going up in the fall. Hope that's clear. Susan LaVentura Ellis says, question, is there any science on the absolute optimum times, like 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 6 p.m. to eat meals? Is it to eat your first meal within an hour of waking? There is some science on that. I think it's actually optimal to eat your first meal a little later than an hour after waking, and to drink a couple of big glasses of water right upon wakening. The science on that is that autophagy, which is the healing and repair of your cells at the deepest level, kicks in when your blood levels of like glucose, glycogen, and amino acids fall low enough for autophagy to kick in. If you drink some big glasses of water first thing in the morning and then don't eat for a couple more hours, you'll get more autophagy happening in those crucial 2 hours. And then eating all 3 of your meals within, say, a 10-hour window or something like that is probably optimal. So you get a nice 14-hour fast window. A nice long fasting window also helps autophagy to kick in. It's also optimal to eat your last meal, well before you're going to fall asleep. So I would say probably optimal meal times are about what you've put there, 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 6 p.m., something like that, or, 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 5 p.m. even. What do I think about mushroom coffee? SC Sharp and Lisa Remington want to know. I think it's fine as long as it's got no cacao or chocolate, anything in it, and no sweeteners of any kind in it. That's the kicker, right? Most of them have some of that, but other than that, it's fine. Selkit Miles says, I've been on Brightline Eating for 6 months and I've not weighed, and I'm not wanting to think about that. How should I proceed? Do you mean weighing your body or weighing your food? I hope you're weighing your food. If it's about weighing your body, I would say you can do the whole program without ever weighing yourself. I would say get into the boot camp, get into Bright Lifers, get coaching around it. Um, I think it's nice to develop a healthy relationship with the scale, or at least not as pathologically unhealthy as a lot of us have had. But I also think it's not necessary. Like, you can do this program without weighing yourself. Um, I would love to talk to you more about that. If you want to get into Bright Lifers and get on a Sunday morning accountability call, I'd love to talk to you more about that. Okay, am I too wise for you? Is your name. Says, would a wheelchair-bound amputee need to add exercise or adjust the diet at all to make up for the fact that you get less than the normal daily activity? That's a great question. And I don't think that being wheelchair bound necessarily is enough information to have a good answer for that, because bodies vary widely. Like, even in a wheelchair, you might actually need more fuel and burn more energy than, a lot of people who are walking around. It really can vary tremendously. So, for example, in general, absolutely, someone who's 6'6" is going to need more fuel than someone who's 5 feet tall. Absolutely. But I know people who are 5 feet tall who've got tremendous metabolisms and eat me under the table at 5'3.5" or 5'4". So I think what you would need to do is probably start the Bright Line Eating weight loss food plan exactly as it's outlined, and then see for yourself how your body responds to it, and see if you end up losing weight at a rate that feels reasonable. 1 to 2 pounds a week is what you're looking for. Francois says, the no flour rule. What about cacao powder? No. Hummus? Yes. Also, I watched a Brightline vlogger who's eating Triscuits. Isn't the base of Triscuits flour? It's not, actually. If you read the ingredients, it's just wheat and it's not flour. April Stowe says, I've taken Wegovy, and through Novo Nordisk, I had a coach that would guide me with food choices, small steps that would give me goals. For a while, we met once a week and then twice a month. I'm still here in the fringes because the weighing and measuring and no snacks are lines I can and have followed. Fabulous, April. If it's working for you, I'm all in favor. Angela says, to access a coaching call, do I have to be in the boot camp or be a Bright Lifer? Yes. Yes, you do. Okay. Woo, this was great. Closing comments. Angela says, or April says, or APR Stowe says, how can I get back into Bright Lifers? Just write into support. So go to the Brightline Eating website and click contact us and fill out the form and say, I was a Bright Lifer. I want to get back into Bright Lifers. Jaybird D says, just when I think I can't be more impressed by SPT, she blows me away with the depth of her empathy and acumen. The answers and examples were amazing. Oh, Jaybird, thank you. Judy B says, 3 years in Bright Line Eating. I'm in my bright body for over 2.5 years. Woo, woo, Judy. Susan La Ventuda Ellis says, thank you, Susan Peirce Thompson, for this amazing Bright Line Eating program. I feel so free already, and I'm only on day 19 today. Susan, I'm so glad you're feeling free, my dear. Oh, freedom. It's what we want, right? Hooray. Sharon from Dallas says, 5 months on Bright Line Eating, down 50 pounds, 50 pounds to go. I feel great. This is life-changing. Fabulous, Sharon. Maggie Gertzen says, Maggie Ann here from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, on Bright Line Eating since November 2019, on maintenance for 2+ years. I'm keeping off 100+ pounds for over 2 years, thanks to Bright Line Eating. Maggie, woo, awesome. Marilyn Payne is over 100 pounds down after 15 months on Bright Line Eating in Arkansas. Fabulous, Marilyn. That's just incredible. Crystal is celebrating her 1-year Resume anniversary today. She's been a member since 2021, and she's released 118 pounds on this Resume. Crystal, I'm just cheering your solid Resume. 1 year today. Well done, sweetheart. And Charlotte says, this process is gold. It works just as Susan says it does, if we can just follow the fabulous plan. My life has transformed as I've lived in my bright body now for 6 years. Amazing energy. Being bright allowed me to find my way to reversing all of my early onset dementia. All of those symptoms gone back in 2018. Wowza. Reversed high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I was pre-diabetic. I had anxiety attacks. I had fatty liver pain. None of that now. Charlotte, you're such a miracle. So much love to you, my dear. And Rachel Steiner says June 28th will be my 3-year anniversary with Bright Line Eating. I am forever grateful to have finally found what works for me after 17 plus failed attempts at maintaining the weight loss. I'm now over 2 years maintaining 90 pounds lost. So good. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So again, the link is down below. Right now kicks off our big event, how to get weight loss drug results without the drugs. And if you're conflicted about weight loss drugs, watch the video series because it will explain the science of them and exactly how to get those same results doing Bright Line Eating. And it'll explain Bright Line Eating to you in a new way through the lens of these weight loss drugs because we get the same results as these weight loss drugs. So check out the video series. Click the link below. It's ble.life/results. Bookmark that event page so that you know when all the events are happening. I'm going to do another YouTube live, one more, next Saturday, June 8th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to have a special 3-hour fireside chat together with 3 special guests, including a physician who's an expert in these weight loss drugs and 2 people who've experienced them themselves and Bright Line Eating. And they'll talk to you about the difference and the pros and cons. One who had a good experience, one who didn't, not so much. So you'll get a balanced perspective. Join me for that fireside chat next Sunday. All of that information is on the event page. So make sure that you click that link and bookmark that page so you can be with me all week. The videos are being released. There's 5 of them, 4 on the weight loss drugs, 1 video explaining the boot camp. Join me. I'm so glad you were here. Thanks for being with me. Lots of love. Susan Peirce Thompson signing off. Bye, everyone.